Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of the Sarah Seams podcast. My name is Sarah. I'm coming to you from Columbus, Ohio. This is my crafty corner of the internet where I share all about my makes. Today it's all knitting, but on my regular podcast, I like to share sewing, quilting, spinning, embroidery, anything within the fiber arts world. I'm probably into it. So if you're interested in seeing some of those other things, please feel free to check out my regular podcasts, which will be starting back up in January, I've just finished out my second year of podcasting, so I have lots of other videos on the channel if you are interested. But today we are here to look at everything I knit in 2024, and it was a really good knitting year for me, so it's so fun for me to look back on these, and I'm really excited to share them all with you. I have super intense notes, so when you see me looking over here, that is what I'm looking at. What can you expect from this video today? I'm doing it a little bit differently than I did it last year. So this year I am grouping all of my makes by category. So there will be 5 categories in the video. We're gonna have hats, scarves and shawls, garments, socks, and miscellaneous. So if you are only interested in certain of those categories and not others, there will be timestamps below in the description box, so please feel free to jump around. If you're an avid sock knitter and you just want to see the socks, feel free to skip ahead to that section. But at the end, I'm also going to be doing a giveaway. So I recently reached 1,000 subscribers on the channel. Yay! So as a thank you to all of you for liking and subscribing and following along through, this is the end of my second year of podcasting, like I said. Just as a thank you, I'm going to be doing a little giveaway. So stay tuned to the end and make sure you enter that. So jumping in to more, what are the details we're going to go through? So for each pattern, I'm going to go through the pattern name, the pattern designer, the size range available, the size I made, and the yarn if I wrote it down. I was not very good at taking notes in Ravelry this year, but I will try my best. And as I said, in the box below, social media and Ravelry will be linked. Maybe I didn't say that yet, but I'm saying it now. Sorry, I'm always a little jumbled. I've been doing Vlogmas and I haven't recorded a real episode in like a month, so please bear with me. Yes, if you have questions about any of the patterns or projects I'm going to talk about here today, my Ravelry project page will be linked below and all the information I have is available there. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them below in the description box and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right, we already talked about the giveaway, the video chapters. We're ready to get going. I thought we would start with some stats. I thought that could be interesting. So, and one little note. So this year I knit 62 items, which is a lot. And I always like to caveat these videos by saying that I am really fortunate to have a lot of knitting time and not a lot of other constraints on my time. So I do work full time as a fashion designer, but most of my free time I'm able to spend crafting. I don't have kids, I live here with my partner and our pets, but my free time is mostly my own, and I'm really lucky to have a pretty good work-life balance, so I get a lot of crafting time, and I choose to spend it knitting most of the time. So yeah, that is how I have this many finished items. I don't think it should ever be a competition or a race or, an effort to see who can be the most productive. So I hope that no one looks like, here's that number and thinks, oh my gosh, I didn't make that many things. No, I just like to come and share everything with you, and I hope that it will inspire you and you'll find something that you want to knit, or it'll spark some other creative idea for you. And it's never about the amount of things. I'm just really fortunate to have enough time to make this many things. So with that being said, 62 items, 18 garments, 10 accessories, 25 pairs of socks, which I'm proud of. Last year my goal was to get to 24 and I got even that one extra one. And more other things, miscellaneous things, home goods, toys, some little tiny things I didn't even count, like little ornaments and little amigurumi things. Lots of really fun things. 30% of what I knit this year were either gift knits or things that were knit for other people that they knew that they were receiving them. So 30%, I thought that was pretty good. I knit from 20 different designers, which I definitely have some favorites you'll see on the list, but I was proud to have that like good variety in there. And I did 2 test knits this year. So I thought that was just some fun little stats. I'd be curious like if you are interested in tracking that kind of stuff as well, some of your stats. But with that said, let's jump right in to the hats and mitts section. I combined these. So the very first one and 2 are kind of combined, and that's why the category is hats and mitts. So the first hats and mitts I knit this year were the Classic Rib Hat by Pearl Soho and Matching Stockinette Mitts by Svetlana Volkova. And I will put pictures of everything on the screen as I'm talking if I don't have the item in person to show you. So for the hat, the size range is baby to adult large. I made the adult medium, and the yarn that I used was La Bien-Aimée Sport Nouveau in the color Coquelicot, and this was a really beautiful, that like perfect, bright, fiery red. I bought this yarn when I was visiting Bainbridge Island in Washington earlier this year or last year, I can't remember, at La Mercerie, which is one of the most gorgeous yarn shops I've ever been to. And after I made the hat, I had enough left over to make the mitts. So the mitts are available in sizes extra small through extra large. I made the size large and it was the same yarn. I think this Pearl Soho hat is a free pattern. I don't remember if the mitts were a free pattern as well, but great little matching set. I would definitely make these again. Next up was the Traveler hat by Andrea Mowry. This hat was Andrea's spring like weekend knit along this year, and I had never participated in one of these knit alongs before, and I was kind of iffy about this pattern, to be honest, but I kind of got the bug and like wanted to participate in the cal. So I had some yarn in stash. I decided to participate. The hat size range is baby to adult large. I made the adult small, and I don't know what the yarn was. It was a secondhand yarn to me, and I unfortunately did not write it down. Also, unfortunately, I did not end up liking this hat. I had fun knitting it. I thought the challenge part of it was fun, and it knit up really quickly in just like a day or two, but it turned out too large for me, even though I knit the adult small, and I didn't like the shaping. It was hard to block. It kind of had 4 very distinct like decrease points, and I just ended up not loving this, and I ended up donating it, so I don't have this one anymore. And I would say this was probably my second least favorite finished object of the year. There's one garment on here, well, that's not on here. I finished one garment this year that was such an utter failure, I couldn't even, like, it had to be thrown away. Like, that's how bad it was. That was a Tulsa Tank by Rebecca Clow. I don't even have a picture of it because I was so frustrated by the whole process. Not an issue with the pattern, it was an issue with my yarn choice, but this was probably my second biggest failure, just in that I really didn't like the finished object, but I still had fun knitting it. Next up is a more recently finished hat. This is the Iris hat by Sari Nordlund. I've knit this pattern many times, like 4 or 5 times at least. This one I made for my partner Troy. The hat is only available in one size, but because it's 1x1 rib, I think it probably tends to fit most adults. And the yarns were kind of miscellaneous. They were a couple of yarns I got for free off of a swap table at the Michigan Fiber Fest. So just a couple yarns people no longer wanted. The main kind of orangey yarn, I believe, was Madeline Tosh Pashmina in the color Terra. And then I held it with like a dark burgundy strand of alpaca that was a really vintage yarn. Like, you could tell it was from like the 90s at least, if not older, which I'm also from the 90s, so I'm also vintage at this point. You could tell from the label that it was probably from the 80s or 90s. But yeah, I think this hat turned out beautifully. The color combo has like this really nice, rich depth of color, and Troy loves this, so would have knit before, would knit again. All right, and the last one in this category, I just finished a couple of days ago. This is the Harlow Worsted hat by Andrea Mowry. So this hat is available in 2 other weights as well. There is a fingering weight version, and recently released is a plump, like bulky weight version. This was my first time knitting this pattern and I loved it. It knit up so much faster than I expected. I knit this one in 2 days. The pattern's available in 3 sizes. I made the middle size, size 2, and I used some hand spun. So I got into spinning this year and I have fallen in love with it. Knitting with hand spun is just like a totally different experience. And that's definitely part of what made this such a potato chippy knit that I couldn't put it down. The fiber is from Cure Wiggins. It is 100% Polworth and the color was In the Dream House, I believe, which is just this perfect like Barbie pink. And the change I made to this one was lengthening the brim so that it could be folded up. The way the pattern is written, it just starts and goes up. I wanted to add a brim, so I added a few extra inches of length. All right, that is it for hats. Let's move on to scarves and shawls. And first up, we have The Simple Thing by Melina Brell. I will put in videos when I have them of me wearing the items here. It comes in one size, but it's really a pretty customizable pattern. I knit mine to be longer and narrower than the suggested, so I increased more rapidly to a smaller amount of total stitches. And the yarn I used was Pearl Soho Simply Camel. So this pattern is kind of like a dupe or another version of the Sophie shawls, the Sophie scarf, but this is a free pattern. So if you've been interested in trying that pattern by Petite Knit, but you just want to see if you like it or you're not the biggest fan of Petite Knit, this is a free option. And this pattern has really nice finishings as well. So you can see here on this version, it has this really nice I-cord all the way around the end. The Sophie shawl does not have that as far as I know. So in some ways this pattern has like even nicer finishing details. This yarn is Natural Undyed Baby Camel and it is such a gorgeous color. It's perhaps not the most flattering color on me, but I do love how like classic and simple it is. Kind of goes with everything. My favorite way to wear it is actually like this. Just like tucked under my coat. Very simple. It's very light and small, very easy to carry around throughout the day, but it keeps me really, really warm. I think this is probably one of the softest yarns I've ever used. And I just was very curious about it. Like, what is knitting with camel like? Turns out it's delightful. So this yarn is very expensive though, I will say that, which is why I knit such a small project with it. So yeah, The Simple Thing by Melina Brell. Now I get to start my giant pile of garments on the floor here. Next up, one of a couple large shawls I knit this year. This is the Melt Shawl by Andrea Mowry. Here is the video of me wearing it. It is available in 2 sizes. I made the smaller size, but as you can see, it's still absolutely massive. The yarns were just some miscellaneous secondhand yarns that I had in stash. And I really like this shawl. It's kind of an untraditional color combo, I think. And I struggled with the color combo for a bit at first. Ultimately, I really like it. Again, I'm not sure if it's like the best color combo for me. So I have toyed with gifting this one. If I found someone that really liked it or wanted it, I would definitely be willing to part ways with it. But I do find when I just want to wrap up in like a schlinket, like a big cozy shawl, this is the one I reach for. And it's knit in DK weight, which is kind of nice, knit up quicker than a lot of those giant fingering weight shawls. I would consider knitting another one for sure. A really enjoyable pattern. Okay, next are 3 that kind of went together. So I'm gonna treat these as one and put them all on the screen at the same time. This year, Sari Nordlund hosted a summer shawl knit along where for 3 months of the summer, she released a pattern each month for one of these small shawls that she's been designing a lot of lately. And I decided to participate because I love Sari Nordlund. These little shawls are fun to knit. And let me tell you about them. So the first one was the Poet Shawl, which would be up at the top here. It's the kind of light creamy colored one. This is one of my all-time favorite lace patterns. I'm about halfway through a Poet Sweater by Sari Nordlund. It's just a gorgeous lace design. And again, unfortunately, I did not write down any of the yarns for these patterns, but they were all things that I had in stash, and maybe you could find more info on my Ravelry project page if I took any notes. That's something I want to be better about next year for sure. The second one was the Kutar shawl, which is the kind of pinky rose goldy one, another classic Starry Northern lace pattern. And then lastly, we had the Beach Day shawl, which is the darker, more purple one. This was a newer pattern for her, and this was probably the most fun one to knit. And it's kind of a different shape. It's a little bit deeper. It has a garter edge and it doesn't lay super flat. That would be my only complaint about that one. And I did end up gifting 2 of these for Christmas, the Poet shawl and the Kutar shawl. I ended up gifting and those gifts were really well received, so that was great. But yeah, I kind of got to the point where as much as these little shawls are fun to knit, I don't find that I wear them that often. I think they can be a little bit tougher to style, and I already had a couple in my wardrobe, so I just kind of got to the point where I was like, I probably don't need to knit any more of these for myself. Myself can only have so many tiny shawls. I mean, if these are your jam, they're so much fun to knit, but I just find I don't wear them as often as my bigger shawls, so I did end up only keeping the one. Okay, next up is the Traveler Cowl by Andrea Mallory. This was my first ever project with hand spun, and it was so much fun to knit, especially because this pattern is kind of designed with hand spun in mind. So the size range goes from toddler to adult large. I made the adult small, and the yarn I spun, the fiber was from Three Waters Farms. It was a couple different fibers from them. And I'm just really proud of how this turned out. I think the hand spun is just, it looks so much better knitted up than it does in the ball. It's just fun to see it like come to life. I've been getting a lot of wear out of this winter. I love the shape of this cowl. I love how the hand spun turned out. I would definitely consider knitting more of these or other cowls by Andrea Mallory in this shape. I know she recently released like the Night and Day cowl. She has a lot of really good ones. So, and I do think this is a perfect project for hand spun. Like the texture just really helps to even out if you have any inconsistencies in your spinning, which I definitely did. So yeah, my first ever hand spun project. I love it so much. I would definitely knit more of those. And lastly in this category, one of the biggest behemoth projects of the year is the Stephen West Mystery Knit Along. So this year it was the Go-Go Dynamo shawl, and it comes in one size. A clue is released every week for 4 weeks, and this was my second year participating. I did actually finish within the month of this time because I decided not to knit the additional border, just because I couldn't bring myself to do it. I really enjoyed this year's knit along. I think the shawl is gorgeous. I think all of the different textures and how like dynamic it is. The construction was really interesting. So yeah, I mean, you've probably seen this all over the internet by now, but I did really enjoy knitting it this year. Even the parts I didn't think I would enjoy, like this border with all the little short row triangles, I felt daunted by it. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to start that because it's going to take so long. But it actually ended up being the quickest clue and one of the ones I enjoyed the most. So I feel like, you know, Stephen West never fails to surprise and delight. So I think the whole experience was much more pleasant this year. It was a little bit unfortunate last year, that being my first time participating, just because of some of the drama that like surrounded the cowl. But this year it was a very easy, seamless experience, and I really love the shawl and the shape of it. So would I knit it again? No, but that's just because in my mind, these are like a one and done, and they're pretty singular. So I don't see myself knitting it again, but if you haven't knit one yet, it is a really fun project. All right, that's it for scarves and shawls. Moving on to garments. This is definitely one of the biggest categories, so I will take you through these. After this, we have socks, which I'm gonna try and go through a little bit quicker. And I do expect this to be a longer video, so like I said, please feel free to use those chapters down below or the time descriptions in the box below to jump around. All right, getting into garments. The first garment I knit this year, and definitely one of my favorites, was the 2-Draw Sweater by Revive. This was my birthday cast on in 2023. My birthday's in November, so I cast this on right at the end of 2023, and it was the first object I finished in 2024. It is available up to a 70-inch bust with 12 to 16 inches of recommended ease. I made size 5, which is the 57.5-inch bust, and I have a 45-inch bust, so that's about 12.5 inches of positive ease on me. The yarn was Biche et Bouche Le Gros Lamb's Wool in the color Candy, and the square on the front is held with the Le Gros mohair in light pink, which is a really thick, it's like a DK weight mohair. This is one of my favorite sweaters I've ever made. It feels very special, so I've kind of gotten in this habit so far. I don't know how long it'll continue, but my birthday cast-ons have been kind of art inspired, and this one was the first one I did last year, and it's inspired by one of my favorite artists, Agnes Martin, who does a lot of like very simple, like geometric, like grids, and like, I don't know, her work is very peaceful. The colors are very soft. And this sweater really reminded me of her, not just because it was called To Draw, but also because of this gridded rectangle on the front. It really reminds me of her style of painting. So I chose these soft colors and I love it. I love the big, oversized, comfy fit. This was the first sweater I had really knit that had that fit, and I have not looked back. Now this is like one of my favorite sweaters to wear. It was also knit in a more woolly wool, which I've learned to really love this year. I don't know how well the color will come through, but hopefully you can see this yarn is like a light blue base, but it has all kinds of bright colors within it, and Candy is a good name for it. I love wearing this sweater. It's one of my favorites, one of my most worn. Would I knit another one? I don't know if I would, just because this one feels so special as my birthday cast on and this, like, you know, project that's really meaningful to me, but I would definitely recommend it if you're interested. It's just slightly shy of being fully size inclusive, which I wish that it was, but I would recommend the pattern. It was a joy to knit. All right, the next one is my Moonflower pullover by Sari Nordland. This pattern is available up to a 70.5-inch bust with recommended 9.75 inches of ease. So this one is size inclusive. I made the size 5, which is about a 55-inch bust, giving me about 10 inches of positive ease. And the yarn I used was a fade set of worsted weight yarns from Tanis Fiber Arts. It was their pure wash worsted. And my alterations to this one, I faded it, which was a fun challenge. And I cropped the body and sleeves, not really because I wanted to, but because I only had so much yarn. So the body length I think is good. The sleeves I definitely wish were longer, but I did run out of yarn. So this one was definitely a brain teaser, like not only figuring out how to get the fade to work, but also figuring out exactly how much yarn I was going to be able to use and then making that work for the sleeve. So this one really, like, it felt like work in the best way. Like, it was a very fun challenge to figure out all of the fading and yarn usage, and I love how it turned out. I think the combination of the crazy yarns and the fade and the cables is definitely a bit much, and I do tend to wear it as like a comfy around the house sweater more than anything, just because it's a little bit crazy. And I do think the sleeves are a little bit shorter than I would prefer visually. I think it would look better if they were long, but it does make it a great sweater for wearing when I'm trying to like do chores or laundry or whatever, and I need my hands free. And because it's superwash, it has a nice weight and drape, but it doesn't get super hot. So this is one that I wear a lot around the house. I had so much fun knitting it. I would definitely like to knit another one of these in like a classic white. I think that would be beautiful. Okay, next up is the Anchor Sweater Men's by Petite Knit. So here is a picture of my partner wearing it because I made it for him. This was the first sweater I ever knit for him, and it was quite a journey. This was another kind of fail for me this year. I think it looks really nice in the picture, but what you can't see is that when he raises his arms, he has like bat wings because the raglan is so far down. So this pattern is only available up to a 52-inch chest measurement with 2 to 5 inches of recommended ease, so not size inclusive, unfortunately. I made the size 4. The yarn was Sandisgarn Mini Alpaca held double. The color is dark terracotta, and I try not to knit a lot of petite knit patterns because personally I think the fact that she's one of the biggest designers out there and she can't like make her pattern size inclusive that doesn't really jive with me. But for men's patterns and like kids patterns where there's not quite as much available, I'm a little bit more willing to use her patterns. So I did knit this and I didn't have the best experience with it, to be honest with you. I don't think the fit is right. When I initially knit the sleeve, and my gauge was it was spot on. So when I initially knit the first sleeve, it was so big, it was like comical. It like hung past Troy's arm like inches, and it was so wide, like it looked horrible. So I had to rip out the entire sleeve and reknit it. I had to like redesign the sleeves basically. And like I said, I think the yoke is way too deep on this. So it has the circular yoke, which is fun to knit and looks really nice, but then it also has raglan increases, which should help the fit, but the yoke, it's just so long. It's a really, really long yoke. It makes it kind of uncomfortable for him to wear. Would I recommend it? Not really. I know this is a super popular group of patterns, but I personally did not have a good experience with this one. All right, on a happier note, next up is my Ursa by Jacqueline C. Slack. This pattern is available up to a 66-inch bust with 2 to 6 inches of recommended ease, so size inclusive. I made the size 5, which is a 50-inch bust, giving me about 5 inches of positive ease. And the yarn I used was EcoView Fiber Mill Ranger Merino Bulky, which is a discontinued yarn, unfortunately, but the color is bunting blue. I love this pattern. I've also knit the previous year, I knit the Ursina, which is the worsted weight version, and I just love it. It's cozy, it fits really well. I think the brioche details are super cute and interesting. If I could have changed anything, I would have knit the sleeve like an inch or two longer on this one, but on my other version, I knit the sleeves to pattern and they were too long, so I think I just kind of overcompensated a little bit. But other than that, everything on this is to pattern. It is definitely cropped, so she gives instruction in the pattern on how to make it longer if you want it to be longer. Mine is knit to pattern. Would I knit another one? I definitely would. I would love to knit a version in like Spin Cycle Plumpy, like something really colorful and fun. I do tend to wear this one a lot around the house just to be super cozy. It's very soft and warm, so I do love this one. Recommend the pattern for sure. Okay, next up was my first summer knit this year. It is the Summer Souffle by Laura Penrose. The pattern's available up to a 70.5-inch bust with variable ease recommended, so I do consider this one to be size inclusive. I made size 6, which is a 50-inch bust, giving me about 5 inches of positive ease, and I think I could have gone down. I think I could have sized down, to be honest with you. The yarn was just a secondhand cotton that I got. It is this really pretty blue, and I only had a little bit of it. So this is so cropped because I ran out of yarn. You can probably see I did have 2 different dye lots. So the yoke above the ruffle is quite a bit darker than the yoke below the ruffle. This ruffle is so cute and impactful. I think it looks great. It's kind of a pain to knit. But I think it's worth it. I think it's really, really cute and fun. And even though this is so extremely cropped, I did still get quite a bit of wear out of it in the summer, just with like a high-waisted skirt or like over a dress. I think it's really cute. Would I knit another one? Maybe. I don't know. If I found another summer yarn I really loved, or I would consider knitting another one of the versions of this, like the original souffle or like the chunky version. I think the chunky version could be really cute actually. So yeah, I could definitely see another souffle in my future, and I love Laura Penrose and would love to support her, so I think that's a great pattern. Okay, next is the Yoon sweater by November Knits. This one is available up to a 66-inch bust with 10 to 12 inches of recommended ease. I made size 5, which was a 54-inch bust, giving me about 9 inches of positive ease. The yarn I used was really the selling point for this one. This was Durarum Natura's Gilead in the color Cacao. This was a new color they released earlier this year and I just loved it. This like really dark chocolatey brown has kind of been everywhere this year and I love it too. This is a super cozy sweater. I tend to just wear it with leggings, like around the house. It's pretty long and it doesn't quite look like dressed up enough for me to like wear it to work or like really out to events. At least maybe I need to find a different way to style it, but it is like a big hug. It's very cozy. I love this yarn. It's one of my favorite yarns ever. It blocks so soft and I just love to wear it. So yeah, I could see myself knitting another one of these. I think like a fingering weight with mohair version would be beautiful. And maybe if it was slightly shorter, it would be a little bit more wearable out and about. But yeah, very fun to knit. I did have to take a break from all this ripping. I think I like finished most of the front panel and then kind of took a pause for a couple months and then came back and finished it because it is a lot of ribbing. It's a lot of 2x2 ribbing, but I think it's a really great pattern. Next is, I have mixed feelings about this one. It's the Pentapillar Pullover by James Watts. I had so much fun knitting this and the yarn was so much fun, but I don't love the way the fit turned out. So it's available up to a 69-inch bust with 4 to 8 inches of recommended ease, so definitely size inclusive. I made the size 4, which was a 49-inch bust, so I should have had about 4 inches of positive ease. The yarn is Barocco Bozzolo in the color Pavon, which this is like a blown cotton yarn. And unfortunately, I have learned over the past few years that I need to size up in James Watts patterns. I love his designs. I think they're so fun to knit and so fun to wear. But every time I've tried one, it comes out too small. And it could be a gauge issue. I don't tend to gauge swatch, I'll put that out there. But I do tend to check that as I go, and this one did seem to be okay. So I'm not sure what happened, but last year I knit the, look at my holes, and that one also came out too small. So I think I just need to size up in his patterns. And I do love how this one came out. I think it's so cute. This modular knitting where you just knit one column at a time, so fun. I wore this to Pride over the summer and had a really great time, but it is too small. It is, I think I'm gonna see if I can find a new home for it because it's just so much fun. I mean, it's a great summer top. The colors are crazy. This yarn is great for these kind of modular designs that James loves to do, but specifically the neckline and the hem, because they're picked up after the body is worked. I don't know if it's the pickup rate or what, but they're just pretty tight and it makes it kind of uncomfortable to wear. So as much fun as this one was to make and wear, at least once, I do think I'm probably gonna find a new home for it because it's not the best fitting on me anymore, but I would definitely recommend the pattern and I would consider knitting one again. I think a scrappy version could be really fun. It's just, you never really have more than those few stitches on your needle at a time, so it's a really fun quick knit. Okay, next we have the Northwoods V-neck by Jessie May. This is hands down my most worn pattern of the year. I love this sweater. This one is available up to a 68-inch bust with 6 to 8 inches of recommended ease, size inclusive. I made size 5, which was a 52-inch bust, giving me about 7 inches of positive ease. And the yarn was Autumn and Indigo Rambouillet, which this yarn is discontinued. I got it secondhand and it is gorgeous. This year I realized that Rambouillet is my favorite yarn to wear. It is so soft and light. That's what I love about it. It just feels like you're barely wearing anything, but it's soft and comfortable and warm, but not hot. Love it. So I had a little bit of trouble knitting this pattern There was an error in the, I don't remember if it was in the short rows or the instructions for the back panel for my size, which I think was just for my size. I looked through the pattern and the rest of the sizes looked okay. But I was able to accommodate that and finish knitting this, and is, as I said, my most worn sweater of the year. I wear it not every day, but multiple days a week around the house. I wear it out. I just love it. I love the fit. I love the yarn, and I already have yarn to make another one. So definitely, I have a hard time I wouldn't recommend it in my size just because of that issue in the pattern, but I almost would still because it turned out so well. So take that with a grain of salt. There is an issue for size 5, but still worth knitting. I think it's a great sweater. Okay, next up is my first of 2 of the same pattern. This is the Linto by Yona Heelan. It is available up to a 67.25 inch bust with recommended 5 inches of ease, so definitely size inclusive. I made the size 4-5, kind of somewhere in between, which is about a 48 inch bust. I started with size 4 and kind of increased to size 5. The yarn I used was Knit Picks Gloss Fingering, and Knit Picks Aloft, which is the mohair, both just in the color black. And I really just wanted a basic garment in my wardrobe, and this checks all those boxes. It's so light and wearable. I love it. I've worn it quite a bit. The only change I made here, aside from kind of doing in between sizes, like I said, was to knit the sleeves straight and then do a round of rapid decreases. So it has like a slight balloon sleeve, which I really like the fit of. This is my 4th Linto, I think. 3rd or 4th. I've knit quite a few of them at this point. I definitely recommend the pattern. All right, next up was my first test knit of the year. This is the Campus Vest by Amy Scher. It is available up to a 68 inch bust with recommended 2 to 6 inches of positive ease, so very size inclusive. All of Amy's patterns are. I made the size 5 with the size 1 bust starts, and that is about a 48 inch bust, so should have been about 3 inches of positive ease. The yarn I used was Harrisville Daylights in the color Lint, which is a hint of purple. And a few notes on this one. So even though I was on for gauge, mine ended up big, like pretty big. I definitely would have sized down, and I did ultimately end up having to add side seams to this because there was so much extra width. And what I did was basically just sew side seams on my sewing machine. I think I took like 3 inches of width out of this. And really, I think I just wanted less ease in the end than I thought I did when I started knitting it. And I think for like vests and tank tops and stuff like this, where you probably want it to be a little bit more fitted depending on how you're going to style it. And I finished mine and ultimately decided I wanted it to be more fitted. So I added those side seams, and I don't think anyone would ever be the wiser. And now I have the fit that I want. So it worked out in the end. Yeah, I would just recommend less ease on this pattern. If you're kind of leaning less ease or more ease, I would go less ease. But yeah, otherwise a really pleasant knitting experience. I really like this yarn. I went on to use it in another pattern in this year. The buttons are vintage. They were given to me very kindly by my partner's parents, and they were passed to them by his grandma or somebody in their family, kind of passed them down, and they thought that I might want them, and I think they look great on here. So I would definitely recommend this pattern and any of Amy's patterns. Next up was a gift knit for my friend's son. This is the Hannah cardigan by Sarah and Penkov. I just have a photo of this one. It is available from 6 to 12 months all the way up to 10 to 12 years. I made the size 2 to 3 years. And the yarn I used was Ritual Dyes Priestess in the color Sugar Maple, which is a DK weight yarn. And this yarn was super nice to work with. I bought this with my friend when we were in Chicago visiting someone else. And yeah, it was a really pretty yarn, very nice to work with. My one complaint is that it bled a lot. When I was washing this, it was just red water. Multiple times I would wash it. So I did give this to my friend with the caveat that she probably shouldn't put it like a white t-shirt under it, put like a black t-shirt under it, because It did also turn my hands yellow while I was using it. So just one call out, it might just be this color, it might have just been this dye lot, I don't know, but I did have a lot of crocking with this yarn, which is where the dye comes off on your hands. Aside from that, really pleasant knitting experience, very fun little pattern. It's half fisherman's rib, which was my first time doing that. Had a bit of a faff trying to figure out how to knit the sleeves, these little tiny sleeves, but I ultimately ended up knitting them on magic loop and that worked out just fine. So I would definitely knit more of these. There is also an adult version of this now. If you're looking for a pretty basic half fisherman's cardigan, this could be a good option. Next up is yet another linto. This was my most recent one and one of the most fun, colorful things I knit this year. Again, this is by Yona Heelan. I won't reiterate all of the pattern info, but it is a size inclusive design. It's knit top down, and traditionally it has, I can't remember if it's make one increases or knit front and back, but for this one I switched that up and I did eyelet increases. I was inspired by some photo I saw on Instagram, I cannot remember who it was from, that had this pink and white fade. Someone was knitting this and I was like, I have to knit that right now. So I just happened to have some pink, neon pink and white yarns in stash that I could use, cast it on, and I think I knit this in like a week or two. Like it was a really quick knit. I think the eyelet increases are really fun. They give it a little bit more of a sporty look. This one is a little bit heavier than my other ones. This one just has a straight sleeve. And I love it. I also added a little split hem on this one to add to that kind of sporty look. Yeah, just kind of switched it up a little bit. This pattern is a really great, just like blank canvas. Like my first version I ever knit was a really beautiful like yak silk yarn that's like really shiny and kind of dressy looking. My second one was fingering weight and mohair, also neon pink. I am thinking about parting ways with that one because the fit's not as good. And I don't need two neon pink versions, but it's really versatile. I think a scrappy version would be amazing, a striped version, like I'm sure I will be knitting more of them in the future. Okay, next, another pattern by Amy Scher. This is the Oolong Tank. I've been kind of oohing and awing over this pattern for a long time and ultimately decided to knit it this summer. And I would say this is my only like really successful summer knit this year. I had such grand plans for all of my summer knits this year and really only got around to finishing 3. And the souffle is a little bit too cropped. The pentapillar is a little bit too small, but I think this one is just right. It is available up to a 67.25 inch bust. It's recommended to have at least 1.5 inches of ease, if not more, so size inclusive, but ease is kind of customizable. I made the size 5, which was a 47.25 inch bust, giving me a little over 2 inches of positive ease. And the yarn I used was Kelborn Woolen's Mojave in the color Slate Gray. I purchased this at Moon Yarn Craft Room in Pittsburgh. And this one I also had to take fabric out of the sides when it was done with sewn seams. So yeah, I had to do that with both of Amy's patterns. Like I said, I think I would just size down next time. But I do think that the lace on this is stunning. It was very fun and easy to knit, but it's so impactful. I actually finished this pretty late in the summer. I didn't get a chance to wear it yet. So I'm so excited to wear this one next year. I think the color is great. The lace is gorgeous. It does have sewn side seams, like I was saying, but I don't think you would ever know that if you didn't know it was there. And now it fits perfectly. So I really liked this yarn. It's a cotton linen blend, super nice to use, really nice. It's gonna be really nice to wear. I can tell just from when I've tried it on, and it's machine washable, so that's great. I would definitely recommend the pattern and the yarn. All right. Next is the one I'm wearing. This is the Nebula by Andrea Mowry. It is available up to a 78 inch bust with a recommended 10 to 24 inches of positive ease. This one is definitely meant to be big and oversized. I made the size 5, like kind of between 5 and 6, which gave me about a 64 inch bust, which is 19 inches of positive ease. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of positive ease. So I'm kind of right in the middle of the recommended range. And the reason I am between sizes was because I wanted to make sure the bottom wasn't too tight around my hips. I mean, if I had just knit the straight size 5, it still would have been fine, but I wanted more ease at the bottom. So I ended up kind of decreasing to the size 5. This one's knit bottom up. So I started with the size 6, decreased up to the size 5 bust, and it fits really well, just like how I wanted. It has a high-low hem, which is kind of interesting. And I do like it, but if I knit another one, which I would consider because this is also one of my most worn sweaters of the year, I would probably just do a straight hem. I think the high-low hem is a little bit harder to style for me. The yarns were Misc Superwash Merino in the color Vintage Library and Explore Knits and Fibers Surrey in the color Skellig, and these were very generously gifted to me by my friend Jess. I cast this on when I was visiting her over the summer in North Carolina. And yeah, it's one of my favorite sweaters to wear. It's a beautiful soft yarn combination. I would definitely knit another one and I would recommend it. Next up was my second knit of the year for Troy. This is the Old Fashioned cardigan by Maxim Cyr. It is available up to a 65.25 inch bust with a recommended 4 to 8 inches of ease. So it's kind of like if you went with the smallest amount of ease, it would be size inclusive. I do wish it had a couple more inches, like one more size option, just in case the person in the largest size wanted the most amount of ease, but it's kind of right on the line. I made the size 4 for him, which was a 45.25 inch chest measurement, giving him about 4 inches of positive ease. The yarn I use is the recommended yarn. It's the Le Garçon British Aran in the color Highland Coup. Pattern 5 out of 5, yarn 5 out of 5. I loved knitting this. Troy loves wearing it. I think it looks great on him. I would definitely knit this again. I kind of want to knit one for myself. I think it turned out so well, and it made me really trust Max as a designer I can go to for patterns for Troy. I think having had the kind of bad experience with the petite knit pattern for men, like this one was totally the opposite experience. I feel like I'm excited to knit other of Max's patterns for Troy. Like, I just feel like I can trust him. I knit it to pattern and it fits perfectly. So great experience with this one. And this was Troy's Rhinebeck sweater this year. He wore this one when we went to Rhinebeck. So that was really fun and nice for him to have something really nice. Have him have something lovely that he could wear. All right. That's it. Those were all the sweaters for Troy this year. The rest are for me. 3 more sweaters. So next, and now we're getting into the ones that I've just finished in the past month or two. So next was my holiday sweater for this year, and this was also my entry into Laura Penrose To Me From Me Mal, which was basically just the idea was to knit something or make something nice for yourself for the holiday season. So this is the Big Rib Sweater by Jessie May. The size range is up to a 69 inch bust with 5 to 9 inches of positive ease recommended. I made size 5, which was about a 53 inch bust. That gave me about 8 inches of positive ease. The yarns I used were Woolfolk Taj, and I held that with Lang Paillettes, which is a sequin yarn. I purchased that from Crafty Jackalope, and this was really fun to knit. I was worried the sequins would be irritating, but they're really not. They were fun to knit with, and they're fun to wear. I really don't find them itchy. If you were super sensitive, you might find them itchy, but I did hold them through the whole thing. You could also definitely just hold them in like every other row or every couple of rows. You could not hold them in the collar. There would be ways to make it less noticeable, but I really don't mind it at all. I think especially holding it with this really fuzzy kind of mohairy yarn helps to counteract the like possible abrasiveness of the sequin. And this is also a pretty light open gauge, which I think helps with that as well. I love how it turned out. I had some trouble knitting it. So once again, a Jessie May pattern where I had to make a lot of alterations. And on this one, let me actually stand up to show you. So basically, I just think the back yoke is way too long. By the time I finished knitting the back, and I was on gauge for this, it was as long as I wanted the entire sweater to be. So then when I started knitting the front, the back was like down here already and the front was like up here. So basically what I had to do was fill in the entire front section with short rows, and it was over 4 inches. So pretty significant. And if I had just kept knitting in the round, this would have just ended up being like the front would have been hitting me where I wanted and the back would have been just like drooping down. Like it would have not fit the way I wanted at all. And it's unfortunate because when I go back and look at Jessie's pattern photos now, it kind of fits her like that. Like she's kind of hiding that. Like, I don't want to say she's hiding it, but you know what I mean? You can't tell from the photos because she has it tucked in the front, but the back is pretty long. So you never know. And I've seen a lot of other people's projects of this on Ravelry and they look fine. So I don't know. But some of them do look like the back's way longer. So I don't know. My experience was that I had to put a bunch of short rows in this to make it work. I do love how it turned out. I also ended up finishing the body just with a bind off, like a regular bind off instead of ribbing, because it was already as long as I wanted it to be. And I actually think that that's really effective with the pattern as well. So I love how it turned out. I had issues with the pattern. It's kind of unfortunately put me a little bit off knitting other of Jessie's patterns, which is a bummer because I love her design aesthetic, but I have yet to have a seamless knitting experience with one of her patterns. And this one was like the worst by far. So love the finished object. Didn't super enjoy the pattern. I don't know. Take with that what you will. Next one, second to last. This is the Kentra pullover by Rebecca Clow. So this is my second and last test knit of the year. And this pattern is coming out in February. So if you're interested, keep an eye out, follow Rebecca on Instagram or check out her channel. She has a podcast as well to learn more about it. This is the DK weight version of the pattern. The final size range is TBD, I'm not sure yet, but all of Rebecca's patterns are size inclusive, so you can expect this one to be as well. I made the size 6, and for my main color, I used Harrisville Daylights again, the same as my campus vest in the color Lint, and I used scraps for the yoke, just a bunch of different like woolen spun scraps that I had in stash. And yeah, I love this sweater. I was kind of between sizes, so I applied to test either the 5 or the 6 and was picked for the 6. So it's definitely a little bit more oversized on me than probably recommended in the pattern. I think I was just outside of the maximum ease recommended, but I honestly really like how it fits. It's so cozy. So yeah, here it is. The yoke is so impactful, so addictive to knit. I think I knit this yoke in 2 days. It's so fun. And then the yoke is finished with raglan increases, which makes the fit so nice. I would honestly consider knitting like a solid version of this just because I think the fit is so good. And then yeah, I knit this one a little bit longer. It's super comfy cozy. I did get a little bit of color bleeding right here on the sleeve, which was a bit of a bummer, but it's not going to stop me from wearing it. I only finished it in November and it's already been one of my most worn knits. Again, I just have learned this year that this is my favorite type of yarn to wear. Like, I love wearing stuff like this that's like the fingering and mohair, the really soft, fluffy yarns, but my go-tos, to me, this is more of a like dress it up, wear it out kind of garment. But these are my like everyday sweaters that I love, and I will wear them out too. These like woolier, woolen spun, beautiful, more, I don't even want to say rustic because to me they're very soft. It's just like a fluffy, rounder soft type of yarn than these like mohairs and surreys and such. So yeah, this year I learned that I love a woolen spun yarn, especially like these DK weight ones. Just love it. So yes, last one, ready? Last garment. Okay, this was my Advent project for this year. I just finished it like a week ago. This is the Daft Days cardigan by Rebecca Clow. So I'm finishing out the year with 2 of Rebecca's patterns. This one is available up to a 69.5 inch bust with a recommended 4 to 8 inches of ease. I made the size 5, which was 49 and almost 50 inches. So about 5 inches of ease. And the yarn was all pre-ordered from Ruby and Rose's Flowers Gone Wild collection earlier in the year. I enjoyed knitting this so much. The colors are crazy, but I love it. It was just total dopamine knitting, dopamine dressing. I really love how it turned out. And knitting it as an Advent project was really fun. I decided not to buy a yarn Advent this year because I just wanted to know what I was getting into. So I just kind of treated myself to a really special yarn instead. This was my first time ever doing a yarn pre-order. And I had a pretty good experience. My only thing with this yarn is that it is scented. So all of Ruby and Rose's yarns are scented with a scented soap, like a scented soak, a wash basically, which I was not expecting. It wasn't really advertised anywhere and I was allergic to it. So I definitely was a little sniffly. My eyes would water a little bit sometimes when I was knitting it, which was not ideal. But besides that, I still had a good time knitting this and I love the finished object. I think the fit is great. I would definitely knit another one. And thankfully, once I washed and blocked it, the scent is like bearable now. But that is something to know if you're sensitive to fragrances like I am. I probably would not recommend ordering from Ruby and Rose's. I did reach out to them and kind of say, hey, like, just so you know, I had an allergic reaction to this. I just think you might want to make it more obvious that all the yarn is treated. And they sent me a pretty friendly response, but yes, they're continuing to treat all of their yarns. So just an FYI, if you are sensitive to that too, I cannot recommend that you order this. I really did have like a reaction to it as I was working with it, but it did make a beautiful garment. So I'm glad I'm still able to wear it because for a minute I was worried I wouldn't be able to. But I am, and I'm really happy. I think it's so beautiful. I found these pink shell buttons that I think were just like a perfect match. And I wore this one on Christmas Day with a red dress under it, very festive. I think it'll be really fun to wear it around Valentine's Day. So I'm looking forward to getting more wear out of this one. I think it looks really cute open or buttoned up, which is nice, like lots of different ways to style it. So last garment of the year, it's a very fun, colorful one. When I got these all together, I actually realized I did knit quite a few neutrals this year, which for me, this kind of slatey blue gray is pretty much a neutral. But then I did just have those kind of pops of the brighter pink. So I think this was the year I really found my color palette. I know what works for me. I'm really finding the yarns that I love. So really exciting. All right, that is it for garments. Let's move on to socks. I'm gonna try and get through these fairly quickly, and where I can, I'll kind of group them together. So let's dive into socks. One of my original love of knitting was socks. That's what got me into knitting. I think I will always love knitting socks. My personal collection is growing quite large. So next year, my goal is to knit more for other people, but let's go through what I knit this year. The first pair were, I'm calling them Coneflower Socks V1, version 1. So this is a design I've been noodling on for years, it seems like at this point. I have this idea for a set of colorwork socks that are inspired by coneflowers. And this is like the first version, which just has a little bit of colorwork at the cuff and the toe. And unfortunately, I did run out of the mini on the second toe. So I learned that for the final version, we probably won't do the colorwork heel as well. But this yarn was Exploring and Fibers Denali Sock a set, one of their sock sets, and the colors were Barrel Aged Sour and Daybreak. This yarn was gifted to me by Jess in our holiday sock swap last year. And I think I want to get back to this idea in early 2025. I would still like to release these as a free pattern at some point. I just need to kind of get to work on them. The next two pairs were D20 socks. So these are one of my favorite types of socks to knit. They're so fun. Basically, you take a 20-sided die, you pick a bunch of different scrap colors, like preferably 20, or you could use 12 or 6 or however many. You roll the die, you assign a number to each color, and then you roll the dice once to pick a color, roll it again to pick the amount of rows you're gonna knit. So using that method, I knit a fingering weight and a DK marled weight version of socks using all the scraps from my advent last year. And I think these are so fun. I love them. The past 2 years I've knit socks like this in January, so I'm sure I'll be knitting more in 2025. Super fun way to knit socks. And these are just custom size, like my vanilla sock recipe. Really, really fun if you're looking for a different kind of method to try out. Next up was a pair of DK vanilla socks I knit for Troy. I don't know the yarn, unfortunately. It was D-Stash that I got secondhand, but these are just basic cuff down vanilla socks with a 2x2 cuff. Really basic, kind of a crazy yarn, but he loves these. All right, one of my favorite pairs of the year next are the Hibernal DK socks by Summer Lee. This is the DK weight version of her Hibernal sock that has it's a combination of ribbing and this really pretty faux cable. They're available in the size small to extra large. I knit the size medium, which is about the 64 equivalent of these are GK, but it's about that standard medium size. And again, secondhand yarn. I apologize, I don't have a lot of the sock yarns, so maybe I'll just tell you the ones that I do have. I was very bad about taking notes for these this year, like I said, but I love these. I do remember that this yarn was a BFL or had BFL in it, and they've got a little bit of a more rustic feel. I think these are ones I'll get a lot of wear out of in this really pretty kind of neutral pink. Next, a pair of DK rib socks with a contrast toe. I think this was one of the patterns from Summer Lee's book, The Sock Project, but I can't quite remember. It's just a basic 2x2 rib sock, and then they've got this crazy green toe. I was kind of lovingly referring to these as my watermelon socks. I think I knit them earlier in the year. Next is a really fun pair. These are my Valentine's Doodle socks. So these were these were a beast to knit. I used the Valentine Doodle decks by Pacific Knit Co. Both of them. There's deck 1 and deck 2. Kind of picked which motifs I wanted and made these really fun socks. So the other aspect of this was the yarn. These colors were a set of mini skeins, 6 mini skeins that I purchased from Dye Mad Yarn Co., which is a local yarn store and yarn dyer here in Columbus, Ohio. They're awesome. And they did this little collection of mini skeins that was wine inspired. So there were 2 dark burgundies, 2 pinks, and 2 yellows or white wine colors. And so I used those to make these really fun socks. And you can see I had to add the little wine motif. Personally, I love the swans and the sunglasses. So I wanted to try knitting a pair of Colorworks all over Colorworks socks in preparation for my coneflower socks that I just mentioned I was designing. And these were definitely about as intense of a colorwork sock as you could get. There's a lot of sections with 3-color colorwork. They're all crazy. There's duplicate stitching, all kinds of stuff. And the colors are inversed on them, which I think is really fun and kind of kept it interesting. They were very fun to knit. I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes. This was also my first time doing an afterthought heel. So a lot of firsts for me. They don't fit the best, but honestly, in my mind, these are kind of more of an art piece than something I'm gonna get a lot of wear out of. So really, really fun pair. I was very proud of them. Next up, I'm gonna group a bunch together. I'm gonna group 10 pairs together. So I'll just kind of cycle through the photos here while I'm talking about them. So earlier in the year, I bought the Sock Project, which is Summer Lee's first sock knitting book. I love Summer Lee. She's one of my favorite sock pattern designers. I'm endlessly inspired by her color combos and just the way her mind works with socks. I love it. So I basically decided I wanted to knit all the patterns in her book. And I just started at the beginning with the basic socks and have been working my way through. And this year I got through 10 of them. So all of them are available from size extra small to extra large. I made size medium for pretty much all of them. The yarns are all miscellaneous or things that I had in stash. If I have specific yarn notes, you'd be able to find them on my Ravelry page, or please feel free to leave me a comment if you want to know about any of them. And these socks are So the first chunk of the book is basic socks. So there's 5 basic sock recipes. First one is heel, flap, and gusset, just like your classic cuff down vanilla sock. Second one was afterthought heel. Then there was forethought heel, which was also a shorty with like a folded cuff. Next we had the short row heel, which is not Summerly's strong suit. I will say that of all the patterns I've knit from her ever, this one, I just don't love her technique for the short row heel, but all the other patterns are great. She even says in the book that she doesn't like short row heels, and you can kind of tell. And then last was a toe up fleegle heel, which fit me really well, but looks crazy. It was like one of the weirdest socks I knit this year for sure. Then we had faded socks, which were one of my favorites. These were so fun to knit. I got like a little mini set. I know those were from Hue Loco, and these were for Troy. And this kind of like green to copper, they really reminded me of like a copper penny or like the Statue of Liberty or something. Like I just love those colors. Next we had some stripy socks. So the first stripe recipe is Happy and Scrappy. So these are all scrappy little bits and bobs to make the stripes. And then we did a Breton stripe, which is this more classic kind of French stripe where you have like alternating wider stripes and narrower stripes. Then we had DK 2x2 rib socks and 2x2 rib socks with color blocking. So those are all the ones I've gotten through. I have a few other pairs on my needles. Really, really fun. Another chunk of patterns by Summerly this year is her Colorwork Cuff Club. So this was something that Summer started in August, and I've been knitting them every month and I'm obsessed. So if you like knitting socks and you want to dip your toe into color work, or you're a pro and you just love color work, I could not recommend this club enough. You can still sign up now. Basically, she releases a new colorwork cuff design every month for a whole year, and if you sign up now, you will still get all the ones that have already been published and continue to get them for the rest of the year until like next August. So I signed up like immediately, and I've been knitting them since August, so I will flash them up and just talk about them briefly. These are also available in sizes extra small through extra large. I knit a combination size, so what I learned knitting the first few was that I need to size up for the color work in order to get it over my heel. So for the color work cuff, I knit a size large, which is 72 stitches, and then I decrease and knit the rest of the sock in size medium, which is 64 stitches. So the first month, August, I knit these ones, which were the granny stripe design. She actually released 2 designs in August, but I knit this one. In September, we had this really cool geometric. This one actually has 6 colors in it. So the cuff at the top is one color, the color work is 3 shades of gray on mine, and then there's 2 different colors striped in the foot. So half the fun of these for me is picking out all the colors, and that's what Summerly is so good at and so inspirational with. These ones ended up getting gifted because they were a little bit too small for me. In October, the patterns were Little Ghosts and Little Apples, which were both really cute, but neither of them were like quite what I was looking for. So I went back and knit the second design from August, which was these really cute flowers. I love these ones. This was kind of where I started to get the fit issue figured out with needing to size up for the cuff. My most favorite pair so far was the November pair, which was this gorgeous Fair Isle design. I love the yarn and color choices here. I just had so much fun with these. So yeah, love them so much. And then I just finished the one for December, which also had 2 patterns, Little Trees and Little Houses. I went with the Little Trees to go super Christmassy and love how these turned out, but I definitely want to knit the Little Houses at some point as well because they are super cute. And now I'm just eagerly awaiting the pattern for January. All right, next up, we're back to a single pair. This was the surprise sock along for 2024 from Stephen West. These were called the Color Popportunity socks. And this is a make along that happens every year, kind of like right before the big shawl knit along. And this was my first year participating. I think these are so fun. They're more like a slipper, honestly. They're like pretty heavy, kind of big. There's so much going on in them, but the construction was really interesting. A lot of it was knit flat, which isn't quite what we expect when we come to socks, but I learned a lot as usual. I got to try a lot of new things, so I could definitely see myself participating in this again next year. and I really love how these turned out. I will say they took me a very long time to knit. I don't see myself knitting another pair, as with most of Steven's designs. I think for me, they're kind of one and done when they're crazy like this, but I did really enjoy them. So I think I'll participate again next year. They were available in 5 sizes. I made the middle size, which again was kind of equivalent to like a 64 stitch sock. Yeah, just really, really interesting. Okay, next, a pretty recently finished pair. These were the Oxbow socks by Andrea Mowry, and this was her fall weekend challenge knit along. So in the spring she does a hat, in the fall she does socks. And these came in a fingering and sport weight option. I made the sport weight option. This yarn, I know, this was the Magpie Fibers Swanky Sock, and the color is Happy Day, which was exclusive to one of the yarn shops in North Carolina I visited with Jess. A gorgeous color. I think the shop was Oak City Fibers. Really cute shop, such a friendly guy that owned it, and I know this was his custom color and it was very like meaningful to him. So Jess and I both got a skein, knit up so beautifully. It feels very luxurious. It has some cashmere. I love how these turned out. The pattern is available from toddler to adult large, and I made the medium. I definitely plan to knit more of these. I have plans to knit a pair for Troy. I think they would be a great gift knit. I love that the texture of the sock continues onto the heel flap. I think that's a really nice detail. And yeah, I would highly recommend the pattern. They knit up pretty easily in like 5 or 6 days. I definitely was able to complete them within the window of the challenge, even though it was over Thanksgiving, which made it a little bit harder. And my last pair of socks for the year was just a pair of plain vanilla socks, but these were my Advent socks. So I just knit these in the month of January. They're just a 64 stitch sock. I knit these ones toe up this year because I wanted to be able to use all 24 stripes. Just did about a little over an inch of a 2x2 cuff at the top, and then I added an afterthought heel. And they're crazy and bright and fun, and I was kind of on the fence about the colors throughout the month, but in the end I do really like how they turned out. And somebody commented that they looked like stained glass, and I totally agree. And since someone said that, I like them more. So yeah, that is it. All 25 pairs of socks for this year. Kind of crazy. And I'm gonna wrap up here with the miscellaneous category, which are just some like funny things. Like I said, I knit a few like little tiny things that I'm not including here just because I feel like if the project only takes like an hour or two, you know, it's hard to put it next to like a garment or something, but these were a little bit larger items, so I just wanted to share. If you had asked me at the beginning of the year if I would be knitting a bunch of chickens this year, I probably would have thought that you were insane, but I knit 4 chickens this year. So by now I'm sure we all know about the emotional support chicken that swept the nation and the world. And yeah, I knit 4 of them. So I was not immune to the charm of the chicken. It comes in one size, but it's pretty easily customizable. It is recommended to be knit in worsted weight yarn. The pattern is by Annette Corsino of the Knitting Tree LA. And yeah, here's the 4 I knit. They are super fun to make. I think part of the emotional support is in the making. I think they're all short rows and they're interesting and it really holds your attention. But it is a very comforting object, like just like holding it in your lap, or like, you know, it is a nice thing. So I made one for Troy, which is the kind of gray and white one. And I think that's the first one I made and it's probably my favorite. It seems very classic. And they all have to have a funny name, right? Like that's part of it. So he named his after one of his favorite musicians, who I think is the lead singer of Tool, which is Maynard James Keen-Hen. The second one I made was the blue colorful one. That one was a gift from my sister. And that one is named after an F1 driver. It is Leclerc, which I love that one too. The next one I made was for myself. That's the kind of brownish purple one with the stripes, and that's Agnes Mart Hen, again named after my favorite artist. And the last one, the kind of colorful hand spun one, was named after a farmer's market food. That is rhubarb. She's not a chicken pun, but it felt right. That one was a gift from my cousin when she recently moved home. So The chickens are very fun. I will probably knit more. I kind of want to knit like a little tiny one. They're fun. What can I say? Let me know if you knit any, and if so, how many, because I feel like one does not simply knit one emotional support chicken. All right, last thing. Towards the end of the year, I discovered the joys of a hot water bottle. I was very inspired by Laura Penrose, who designed all her beautiful hot water bottle covers. So I bought one for myself, and I knit this. I'll put all the covers up here. I knit this kind of really pretty pinky orangey hand spun cover for mine. I got one for Troy, who he got his for Christmas. His is the brown stripy melange one. And then lastly, I knit a Chapel Roan inspired punny one that says hot to go for my sister as a Christmas gift. The pattern I used is called All You Need, a Classic, which is funny. It's by London Leo. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and it's just a very basic, like pretty easily customizable, kind of a blank slate. I used that pattern for all of these and just kind of adjusted the stitch count as needed depending on the yarn. The hot to go one is my favorite. It was fun to knit. I did the letters with duplicate stitching, and my sister loved it. So yeah, a fun note to end the video on there. So that is it. That's everything I knit this year. It's a lot. Thank you for bearing with me through the whole video. I am really excited to start the 2025 knits and see what we get up to. But as promised, we're going to do a giveaway. So as just a thank you for being with me the whole year, these past 2 years, supporting the channel, commenting, just being part of this community, I just wanted to say a little thank you and give away a couple of patterns. So I'm going to give away 3 patterns of your choosing, 1 pattern per person, 3 winners, and here's how you can enter. So we're all starting to think about 2025 as we're wrapping up this year. So I want to know, what is a pattern that you are really excited to knit in 2025? If you leave me a comment with that information down below, you can win that pattern. So what you need to do, like the video, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and let me know in a comment below what is a pattern you're looking forward to knitting in 2025. And then the giveaway will be open through January 8th. So this video should be going live on New Year's Day. Happy New Year. And you're gonna have a week to enter. So through January 8th. And then in my next video, which hopefully will be January 10th, which I think is a Friday, I will announce the winners. So I will pick 3 names at random from the comments and put them here on the screen, announce them on the podcast. And then if you win, you will need to email me, and I will make sure you get a copy of that pattern on Ravelry or through whatever method you would prefer. So really excited to give these away. Can't wait to hear what patterns you're excited to knit. A couple I'm excited to knit. I'm gonna knit a D20 sweater. I'm gonna be casting that on at the beginning of January, which the same way I knit the socks, it's gonna be randomized with a bunch of scraps. I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to knit the new Mozart sweater by Caitlin Hunter. What else? A tessellated cardigan. I have lots of plans. Maybe a pressed flower shawl. Lots of things I'm excited about for the new year. So let me know which one you're excited about and which pattern you'd like to receive. Just a PSA, doing a giveaway on YouTube always brings the scammers, so I will not let you know in the comments that you've won. I will never ask you for money or personal information in the comments or a DM or nothing. I will announce the winners here on the next podcast. You will reach out to me and then we will figure it out. So just be careful out there, protect your private information. But thank you for participating and thank you for following along and supporting the podcast. With that, let me wrap up this surely extra long video and just say thank you again. I hope you'll enter the giveaway. I hope you'll come with me into 2025 and keep sharing all the crafty goodness. And I am looking forward to seeing you in the new year. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.